The afternoon my quiet fuel stop turned into a federal case started like any other forgettable errand. Hot Georgia sun on faded concrete, the smell of gasoline and burnt coffee, me in a worn Army t-shirt and jeans topping off my tank before heading to the airport for a classified briefing. If you had driven by, you would have seen a middle-aged black man standing next to a black Mercedes G-Wagon, just another customer at a small station off Highway 85, not someone who was about to get beaten, arrested, and turned into a national story, while people at the Pentagon listened in real time. I had been in the Army 22 years by then, 3 combat tours, a Bronze Star, a Purple Heart, more folded flags and memorial services than I care to think about. That car was not some overnight flex. It was the one thing I bought to remind myself that all those years away from my family meant something, that my wife and kids were finally okay. I loved the simple, ordinary moments more than anything. The young mom juggling groceries and a sleeping toddler, the old man checking his tires with slow, careful hands, the construction worker grabbing a cold drink on his way to the next job. That little gas station felt like the kind of everyday peace a lot of us had bled for overseas. I had just clicked the nozzle back into place when a patrol car rolled into the lot. At first I barely noticed. I respect law enforcement, always have. But instead of pulling up to a pump, he cut across in front of my SUV and stopped at an angle that quietly boxed me in. My internal alarm, the one built from years of walking into bad situations, nudged me and said, "Pay attention." The officer got out with his hand already resting on his weapon, stocky white guy in his 30s, tight jaw. The kind of stiff walk that said the day had been chewing on him. I did not know his name yet. I just knew he was walking toward me like I was a problem he had already decided to solve. "Afternoon, officer," I said, keeping my hands visible the way my father taught me and the way I teach my soldiers. Just fueling up before I head back to base. He did not give me a hello or a smile. He stopped a few feet away, squared up, and said, "What are you doing here?" Not what I was doing wrong, just what I was doing, like my presence in that parking lot needed special permission. I almost cracked a joke, then something in his tone told me not to. "Getting gas before I head to Fort Benning," I answered, calm and polite. "I have a briefing at the Pentagon Annex this afternoon." You can always tell when somebody hears the word base and chooses which way to go with it. Some people relax because they respect the uniform even when you are not wearing it. Some decide you are lying. I watched him pick the second option. "This your vehicle?" he asked, eyes on the Mercedes. "Yes, sir," I said. "Paid for and registered to me. I have my license and registration right here." I pulled my wallet out slowly and handed him exactly what he asked for. He held the cards up to the sunlight like he was checking a fake ID, then stared at my face, back to the name, back to my face. Everything matched. Everything was clean, but his expression did not change. "This is an expensive ride for somebody on military pay," he finally said, flat and sharp. It was one sentence, but it carried a whole story. The assumption that a man who looks like me could not possibly have earned what he owns. In my head, 22 years of deployments, missed birthdays, and names etched on memorial walls flashed past in about 2 seconds. "I have been in a long time, sir," I answered. "Good promotions, smart investments. I have been blessed. In a sane world, that would have been the end of it." He would have handed my license back, maybe told me to drive safe, and gone on with his shift. Instead, he handed my documents back slowly and said, "Step away from the vehicle." The air around us got heavier. "Is there a problem, officer?" I asked. "You heard me," he snapped. "Step away from the vehicle and put your hands on the hood." Around us, the gas station shifted. The young mom paused with a bag of groceries halfway to the trunk. The older man straightened up from his tires. The construction worker set his drink on his roof and leaned on his fender, watching. That nice little slice of everyday America turned into a stage in about 3 seconds. Here is the part I did not know at the time. Hundreds of miles away, deep under concrete and security badges at the Pentagon, a duty officer named General Elizabeth Clark was looking at a screen full of small blue dots. Each dot represented a senior officer with high-level clearance carrying a government tracker so help could come fast if something went wrong. My dot suddenly changed color and started flashing, heart rate up, stress indicators spiking. She clicked my profile, saw "Off-duty Colonel Anthony Coleman, Sunoco Station, Highway 85, Georgia," and pulled up the live audio feed reserved for medical and security emergencies. She expected a crash, maybe a heart attack. Instead, she heard, "Hands on the vehicle. Now." Back at the pump, I was doing everything I could to keep this from turning into something it did not need to be. "Officer, with respect, I have given you my ID and registration and told you where I am going," I said, keeping my voice level. Can you explain why you are asking me to do that? For a reasonable person, that is a fair question. For him, it was defiance. You are making this harder than it has to be, he shot back. Hands on the vehicle, legs apart. You carrying any weapons or drugs I should know about? In that moment, it was clear this was not about safety or suspicion. It was about control. I felt the line he was trying to shove me across. One path was simple and ugly. Turn around, let him pat me down, let him dig through my property for no reason, swallow the humiliation, and walk away with a bruised ego and a story to tell later. The other path was the one I had taught young soldiers for my entire career. You have rights, they are real, and they are worth something. I also knew exactly what that choice can cost a black man standing in front of an angry officer with a weapon in his hand. Officer, I am going to respectfully decline. I said, every word weighed. I have complied with your lawful orders. You do not have probable cause to search me or my vehicle. I have done nothing wrong. His face changed like someone had flipped a switch. That is it, he growled. You are under arrest for obstruction and resisting lawful commands. He grabbed my arm and tried to wrench it behind my back fast and hard like I had taken a swing at him. 20+ years of training do not disappear just because someone in a county uniform loses his temper. My body shifted to keep my balance, to keep from going face first into the hood of my own car. For him, or at least for the story he wanted to tell, that was all he needed. Stop resisting, he shouted loud enough for every microphone and every phone pointed at us. I heard someone gasp. I heard another voice say, he is not resisting. I am recording this. Then the baton came out. First strike across my shoulders felt like someone dropped a live wire on my back. Second across my ribs took my breath away. Third clipped my head enough to send warm blood running down my face and into my eye. Through all of it, I kept saying the same thing louder each time, not for him but for anyone watching, and for whoever might hear this recording later. I am not resisting. I am not resisting. Somewhere behind me a woman shouted, "We see you. We are filming." That did not slow him down one bit. In that Pentagon operations room, those same cracks of the baton and those same words were echoing through government speakers. General Clark and her team were listening to one of their colonels being beaten by a local cop while doing nothing more than buying gas. She called in Captain Emily Walker from Civil Military Affairs, sent an urgent alert to the FBI's Civil Rights Division with my name, clearance level, and location, and made it very clear this was no longer just a local matter. While he shoved me into the back of his cruiser, tightened the cuffs until my hands went numb, and announced to the parking lot that I was being arrested for assaulting an officer, federal agents in Atlanta were already changing plans and heading our way. I did not know any of that. What I knew was the smell of vinyl inside that car, the metallic taste of blood, and the way my heartbeat thudded in my ears as we drove to the jail. Booking was a blur of fluorescent lights and metal trays. Empty your pockets, take off your belt shoes in the bin. One Sergeant Torres picked up my military ID where the officer had tossed it, turned it in his hand, and looked at me for a long second. "This real?" he asked quietly. "It is," I said. United States Army colonel assigned to Pentagon operations. The young deputy taking my fingerprints looked up for a half second, eyes flicking between my face and the card, then back down at the machine. The system rolled on. Out in the world, the system was starting to crack. The nurse in scrubs who had watched from the doorway, her name is Angela, had posted her video with a caption about a cop beating and arresting a man for absolutely nothing. Her friends shared it. Local activists grabbed it. Within a few hours, it was bouncing around group chats and news feeds, and people were tagging it with words about justice and the colonel. Veterans groups saw the uniform in my wallet, heard I was on my way to a Pentagon briefing, and added their voices. Suddenly, this was not just about one man and one officer. It was about service, race, and power in a county parking lot. By the time an FBI agent named Garcia walked into the holding area, called me Colonel Coleman, and asked if I needed medical attention, the story had already grown bigger than that gas station, bigger than Richmond County. He had me walk him through everything from the moment the patrol car pulled in to the moment the cell door closed, and I did it the way I would brief a mission, not because I was not angry, but because anger was not going to build a case. Then he played me part of the audio from the officer's body camera. The video feed had conveniently malfunctioned right as he pulled into the station, but the sound kept going just long enough to catch him saying, "Another one of these types in a car like that thinks he is above the law. I am going to teach him some respect." Hearing that was the real twist for me. This was never about my behavior, my tone, or whether I moved too fast. The decision had been made before he even opened his door. After that, it turned into layers of investigations I never expected to be the center of. Internally, their own detectives dug into his file and found what a lot of people in that county already knew. Complaints stacked up, traffic stops that almost always involved Black and Hispanic drivers, searches that almost never found anything, use of force reports that read more like temper tantrums than necessary actions. Externally, the FBI and the Justice Department pulled together Angela's video, other witnesses' clips, the Pentagon audio, my medical records, and years of paperwork with his name on it. Higher up, the Pentagon and the Secretary of Defense started asking how many other service members had been profiled, harassed, or worse, without a live audio feed and a general who knew their name. A few days later, General Clark stood behind a podium in front of a wall of flags and put my official photo up on a big screen. Same face, just in dress blues with medals across my chest. She read out my record, talked about the ambush in Afghanistan where I pulled wounded soldiers out under fire, the convoy hit by an IED where I caught shrapnel that earned me the Purple Heart, the counterterrorism work I was doing at the annex. I watched from a hospital bed with bandages on my ribs and my wife's hand in mine, feeling proud and uncomfortable at the same time. I have never liked the spotlight, but I understood why they were shining it. People needed to see exactly who that deputy had decided was one of these types. 6 months later, I sat in a federal courtroom in Atlanta and watched a jury look at the whole story laid out clean. They saw the videos from the gas station. They heard me on the Pentagon audio saying I am not resisting while the baton landed. They heard experts explain use of force. They saw the pattern in his traffic stops. They listened to that body cam audio where he talked about teaching me respect. They also saw my record, heard from General Clark about what my job actually was and what it meant when someone with my clearance got dragged into a county system on bogus charges. The verdict did not take long. Guilty of violating my civil rights under color of law. Guilty of excessive force. Guilty of tampering with evidence. At sentencing, the judge looked him in the eye and said that while I spent more than 2 decades serving my country, he had been serving his prejudice that he saw a Black man in an expensive car and decided I had to be a criminal, and when I calmly asserted the rights he swore to respect, he beat me for it. Then she gave him 10 years in federal prison, 3 years of supervised release, and made it clear he would never wear a badge again. Did that fix everything? No. Did it matter? Yeah, it did. His department ended up under federal oversight, had to retrain their officers, change their policies, put in real body cameras that could not be quietly switched off, answer to a civilian review board. The Pentagon and the Justice Department worked out new protocols so service members on official business have clearer protections and faster federal backup if something goes wrong. Other soldiers started reporting their own stories once they saw what happened in my case. Some things shifted, even if it was just a few degrees. What has not shifted completely is that knot in my chest when I see a cruiser slide in a little too close, or when someone asks, "What are you doing here?" with that edge in their voice. I still think about that moment by the pump, the instant where I had to choose between letting somebody walk all over my dignity or risking my body to stand on the principles I had spent my whole career teaching younger soldiers. I still think about all the people who do not have a tracker pinging at the Pentagon or a general who knows their name when the baton comes out. That is why I am telling you this story like this, not as some legend about a war hero and a bad cop, but as a man who went to get gas and ended up as a test of what justice actually means in this country. Because behind all the titles and headlines and press conferences, it started with one simple question that never should have turned into all this. What are you doing here? I was existing. I was living a life I had paid for in time and blood, and somebody decided that was suspicious. So now I want to hear from you. When you see videos like Angela's online, maybe mine, maybe someone else's, what do you see first? A threat? A hero, a problem, a neighbor, or just another clip to scroll past? If you had been standing in that parking lot with your keys in your hand and your own tank full, would you have recorded, spoken up, stepped between us, or looked away and told yourself it was not your business? Tell me in the comments what you think justice looked like here. Was 10 years fair, too harsh, not nearly enough? Have you ever been on the wrong end of somebody's snap judgment or realized later that you were the one judging someone you did not really know? I read what you share, and it matters. And if you think stories like this need to be heard, not just mine, but all the quiet ones that never make the news, hit subscribe, share this with someone, and stay in the conversation. One click from you will not fix everything overnight, but it does help make sure the next time somebody looks at a person like me and asks, What are you doing here? They know the whole world might be listening.